When Tony Jaa first exploded onto the scene in 2004 as Ong Bak, he seemed destined to become the world's savior of martial arts films. This fresh new face brought a jolt of energy back into a genre populated by aging stars such as Jackie Chan, Van Damme, and Steven Seagal. Ong Bak was a massive success in his home country of Thailand, but more importantly, around the globe. Martial arts great Donnie Yen even stated that Tony Jaa had beaten Hong Kong at their own game, and even acknowledged that Ong Bak was a motivating force to do better in his own work. With all this attention, Tony Jaa was deemed an overnight success. However, this acclaim of overnight success completely ignored the fact that Jaa was not actually a newcomer at all, as his first notable screen credits came in 1992, 1994, and 1996 on a few low-budget Thai productions. Soon after, in 1997, he was part of a much bigger production working as Robin Shou's stunt double in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Jaa's overnight success was actually a result of working hard and toiling around in near obscurity for over a decade. The truth is that the idea of being an overnight success is a myth. It's a carefully crafted narrative, which we conveniently buy into as a form of wish fulfillment. Anyone who has achieved anything great in life has tirelessly put in the work, time, and energy for years, sometimes decades before ever getting noticed. And that big break, luck, what some may call, is really just the result of preparation finally meeting opportunity. Although we all want to feel special and extraordinary in some way, the fact is most people have enormous ability and potential, so there's nothing wrong with being ordinary. What's more important is to have extraordinary discipline, drive, and work ethic in order to achieve.
I found
Tony Jaa.
This dude was an Ong Bak movie. I just seen that discovered that movie several years ago. I had never heard of him before that. Then I seen him using one of the Furious movies, and he was in some other stuff on the movie with Lundgren a couple years ago. And then he was in some other movies with Michael Jai White. So he's really damn good. I was wondering what the heck. Seen this guy in a while. I was wondering what the hell happened to him.
Was certainly great. Just hear what some of his contemporaries have to say.
I think there's 3 of those Ong Bak movies. There he is now.
I say one of the greatest martial artists alive today. He really is. He's the most talented physically ever. When I say ever, I mean ever.
But he's made from different DNA.
Well,
nobody can do what Tony Jaa can do. That man can jump over a car, walk over you, do a flip and kick you in the head. When I say he's the most physical, nobody can do. Nobody could do that stuff.
I think he's great. I see so many action stars in the world. He's the one of them, very, very physical. Action, jumping, do all the things really, really good.
You could just look this guy just jumped over somebody's head, kicked him in the back of the head. Come on. Listen, everybody's got their accolades.
Right.
Nobody could do that.
Wow.
What Tony Jaa could do without even warming up, nobody can do.
I think he's lucky. He sees so many hour films.
Yeah.
Now he can combine everything together.
Yeah.
Used to be we don't know which way we're going. Okay, first kung fu, later on kung fu with action, then kung fu action with a stunt with acrobatic. After acrobatic,
what that guy looking like Eddie Gordo in the water.
And everything. Now Tony Jaa, the same, boom. You see everything, put everything together, boom, in the one movie.
He was touring and doing on Bach. He was doing demonstrations in the movie theater, doing amazing stuff, right in front of everybody.
He's very powerful. I've never felt power like it, to be honest, from any other martial arts.
I can't think of his name. It's good. That guy right
the
there.
speed
He's in some
and
good
the power
movies.
that he has is honestly mind-blowing. You see it in the movie, obviously, but to see it in the flesh, in person, to feel it, I was covered in bruises. I knew it was going to be hard, and I didn't want it to be any different than the quintessential Tony Jaa experience should be.
Tony Jaa certainly has all the martial arts talent in the world. However, that is never enough, especially since the martial arts boom eventually faded in the 1990s. Add to that, one of the appeals that Tony Jaa has is that he can do all of his own stunts without wires and CGI. However, major studios want their stars, especially their leads, to avoid injury at all costs. So what actually seems like a big benefit for the performer to have is actually detrimental for a major movie studio if they were to use that star's abilities in full. These days, a martial artist would probably have a hard time trying to break boundaries in their movie, with the studio consistently worrying about them and their investment. Also, since the UFC entered the mainstream in 2006, it made mixed martial arts fighting a common sight. In the end, this made martial arts movies suffer, as the magic and appeal martial arts movies once provided throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s quickly evaporated. Going back to 2004, the original Ong Bak grossed for $2.5 million at the Thai box office, and pulled in another $17 million internationally, and just like that, Tony Jaa, a newcomer, seemed to be the biggest name in martial arts movies. Bigger and better things would soon follow with The Protector, which scored another chart-topping performance in Thailand, where it grossed nearly $4.5 million, and then another $23 million internationally. Though critics were not too kind to the film or Jaa's acting and performance, it seemed his star was sealed and the big Hollywood offers began to roll in. After months of speculation as to what his next project would be, word began to circulate that Jaa's relationship with Prakeo Pinkau, the director of Ong Bak, had broken down over Jaa's insistence that he didn't need the director anymore and wanted to direct himself. The studio ended up handing Tony Jaa's biggest budget yet in order to make his directorial debut with the prequel film Ong Bak 2. The film ended up becoming a nightmare on several levels. Jaa ended up having a complete meltdown on set and simply disappeared for 2 months, causing the film to fall behind schedule. When Jaa returned to work, he found his director's role was taken away and handed to his mentor, Panarik Rai. The budget got out of control, and the studio made the last-minute decision to do rewrites and split the film into two in the hopes of recovering the massive cost overruns. Having two films instead of one gave them a much better chance of recouping their investment, but it ended up being at the expense of Tony Jaa's career. Despite the larger budget and massive sets of Ong Bak 2, the film only managed to pull in $2.9 million at the Thai box office and an even less impressive $6 million internationally. Things got even worse for Ong Bak 3, with it failing to even crack the top 5 domestically released titles in Thailand, with a mere $1.3 million take, which was less than half of what Ong Bak 2 grossed, a sure sign that the local audiences lost interest. Internationally, it would fare even worse and ended up only grossing $1 million. Tony Jaa subsequently stepped away from movies for a time and became a Buddhist monk. He would return in 2013 for the sequel to The Protector. 2015 seemed to be the year of Tony Jaa, as he played the role of a villainous henchman in Furious 7, then appeared alongside Dolph Lundgren and Michael Jai White in Skin Trade. He'd also make his Hong Kong debut in SPL 2. He still remains active to this day, and later this year in 2023, he'll be in the latest installment of The Expendables, starring alongside other action greats. Despite his involvement in those
The
films,
Expendables is coming
Jaa was
back.
never quite able to recapture the same level of fame he had after the original Ong Bak and The Protector. And to this day, people often wonder whatever happened to him. Oh, it'd be interesting to get your opinion on this. What has happened to Tony Jaa since he blew up on Ong Bak?
He's in Expendables. Keep an eye out.
Oh, he's still doing stuff, but like I think where this guy's going, he was like the lead in a theatrical movie and kind of taken, you know, like what what Van Damme and Skull was doing. It's kind of like him and Jason Statham.
He's like the new action, the new action star.
Release movies, but it kind of like he did a couple of those and just kind of fell off for whatever reason.
I only heard of him a couple years ago.
Right?
Yeah, I personally feel like it's with him and even with Jet Li. If you go back, like he had Romeo Must Die, Kiss of Death, or Kiss of the Dragon.
Oh,
he
I
had
know
a bunch, right? He had a bunch that, you know, you're like, okay, cool, and it was almost like Jackie or Jet Li, the one. There was so many things coming out. Even War with him and Statham. Right?
That was a good one.
But when you look at Jet Li,
I remember that,
and Tony Jaa, there was a huge language barrier. There's a huge language barrier that they did not address 100%. Jackie had a language barrier too.
Do you speak any English?
And then he worked on his English. And it almost became a part of his character. Just like with Arnie, he had that thick accent. Jackie had his, you know, I don't want any trouble. Okay, like he started having the very Jackie trademark dialogue. Right, where you expected before he was gonna fight, he didn't want any trouble. It became one-liners, it became memes, it became everything that was part of his brand. Arnie, the same thing, right? His cheesy one-liners, right? Yeah, sure. Freeze, right? Like what just happened, right? When he was what, Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, right?
Allow me to break the ice.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of things that.
Hey everyone, chill. I remember that.
Carson Statham had no problem with his English. In fact, people found it to be very cool. When, you know, he was down here and he was a little bit like, and
that's just who he became. He became the transporter in every movie. He brought that vibe with him.
The transporter was no joke. Boy.
That was great. The redneck can fight. And it was really, really cool, right? So if you go back and you see Tony Jaa, it was very action-oriented.
Here we go.
Powerful special forces trick turns men into beasts. People are
Damn ads.
melting belly fat and getting incredible outdoor by doing this breakthrough military hack for 20 minutes per day.
Very action-oriented. And Jet Li was very action-oriented, which is great, but they needed at times to be able to speak.
That's a good point, man. Yeah, with Jason Statham, it worked because I know in general
This guy's
a lot
cat
of
keeps
people
getting in the pit
in
chat.
America don't really care for the English accent. It seems weird. But
That's
he's got,
annoying
like,
when you're trying to record.
Like I don't know how many different English accents there are, but his really works for the American audience. Whereas a lot of other guys not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And he packages it real well. That's once again some of the stuff that I'm saying. Like Scott has some of his, they could pull off probably the same accent if they just bring it down a certain level, but how they packaged Statham was really, really smart, right? I wish the same thing happened for Scott, where they packaged him. You're a lead. This is who you are. You're the cool dude.
Scott.
He had the physique. He had the skill.
Scott Atkins. That's his name.
Right? Like he was more
Boy,
fancy
Jesus.
and flashy with his martial arts than Statham is.
And he was a lot of stuff.
But it's all about
Not the same.
It's how you package it.
Same thing. Tyrone Magnus said I could see him. I'm not gonna do it. I could see him as Bruce Wayne and Batman, but not dang, what's up? That Ben Affleck. Like I posted the picture a few days ago. That's not Batman. That's not Batman.
I also think, and he kind of brought this up himself when I interviewed him. I mean, because he's been doing movies for 20 years. I think because he's done so many of the lower
Tony
budget straight video,
what's his name?
That's just how people see him. And in some ways, almost like a glorified stuntman. So when he gets a bigger role, I mean, he did great.
They hate that
great
word.
Performance, good lines, good acting. A little less degree in Expendables. But when they use him in Marvel movies, it's like he's like a glorified stunt guy. So it's almost like I think
Tony Jaa was in Marvel.
Even if you go back to the 80s and 90s, you take any of these.
I must have seen it.
Amazing on Renegade did a string of straight-to-video movies. It's really hard to break out of that, and then just you did a dozen straight-to-video movies. All of a sudden, you're going to be in a theater movie. It's almost like you get stuck, right?
But that's the packaging. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Right? That's exactly it. Is whoever is on your team can package you a certain way, right? They did the same thing with Dwayne Johnson. They did the same thing with Cena and Vin Diesel, where it was like action guy, and then once he stood on that platform, they're like,
Cena. I can't see
him.
him getting to the Rock's level. I can't see it. I can't see it.
It's
see him getting to that level.
It's gonna help you carve that path and navigate it. That's why you have a team, right?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Because Van Damme could have stayed as a bad guy the whole time. He did his splits. He came in and he was a hired gun European dude, when he first popped up. But then someone believed in him. Plus, he had the grind and the hustle. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then they're like, "Oh, cool. All right, let's put this guy in the forefront." Scott had that. He really did.
Yeah, it was really Lionheart. And Sheldon talked about that. That's why Universal picked it up and distributed it, even though it was a smaller Imperial Entertainment movie. But they seen he can actually act in.
Your heart, Lionheart.
It wasn't when he was fighting in the movie. It was when he was interacting with the niece when he met her for the first time. They're like, okay, this guy could actually be a leading man. He's kind of got the drama, the dialogue, and good interaction with the young actress. So.
A simple business that can earn $300 in profit per sale and be managed in less than 30 minutes per day. How?
Oh, you're killing me with the ads now. I know some channels have them because they have a big channel base. But anyways, like I said, I was wondering what happened to this dude because the last thing I seen him in was the last thing I seen him was in the Michael Jai White movie. Him and think the guy from UFC was in it too. After that, that was it. Before that was the Dolph Lundgren and Michael Jai White, but I ain't see him actually. I ain't seen him in a minute. So I think he still posts on IG once in a while. But yeah, I was like, what the hell happened to dude? Because he was like the next new big action star. Yeah, so I was wondering what happened. Wondering what happened to him.